ladies and gentlemen. We are back here on Sunday Night Live, right here on InfoWars, brought to you by InfoWarsStore.com. You cannot stop the truth. You cannot stop Alex Jones. You cannot stop Owen Schroyer. You cannot stop the entire team here at InfoWars who are doing such amazing work on the front lines of the idiocracy, fighting against the idiocracy, because the idiocracy is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake, the idiocracy is upon us. Things have never been more idiotic, ever, in our entire lives. The authoritarians who rule over us are the stupidest people in the history of the world who have ever gained power over smart, competent people like ourselves. We don't like it, and we're saying something about it, and we're doing something about it. And my next guest is a great man, a legend. Infamous, by the way, notorious, infamous. His name is Ethan Ralph. He is the host of the cult classic late night show, The Killstream, and he joins us here on InfoWars. Ethan Ralph, thank you for joining us.
Patrick, how's it going, man? It's good. You know, usually you're on my show. You mentioned the Killstream. Thank you so much. Very high praise. It's going good. It's a rare off day for me. I've been doing double duty recently with the Chauvin trial coverage during the morning, and then the regular Killstream at night, killstream.live, of course, if you want more info on that. But yeah, man, it's good to be here.
Ethan, the thing that I love about you is that anytime I tune into your show, you have constructed this world for yourself that is just totally unique to you. No matter what you're doing, either you're fighting with characters, you were recently in a fist fight that you showed on the show, and we're not encouraging violence, of course, but no matter what it is, you're always involved in something going on in your life, and it's always entertaining.
Well, I will say it's for better or for worse, never a dull moment. I say for better, you know, it's better that people talk about you than don't talk about you. And I don't know, the show itself keeps going almost in spite of some of the wild extracurricular stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's never a dull moment. Like you said, got in a fist fight a couple weeks ago that was taped and recorded and released on the internet. Most people probably don't go through that sort of thing in their life, but for me, that wasn't even maybe top 5 craziest thing that's happened to me throughout all this stuff. So yeah, being the host of the Killstream and being me, it's definitely crazy, I guess you could say. Wild situation.
Well, we enjoy going along for the ride. You've been watching the Derek Chauvin trial in Minnesota, and I mean, as this verdict comes in, either way, there's going to be a lot of national strife. Already, the Reverend Al Sharpton has made his comeback, and the Reverend Al's looking old these days. But what is your take on the trial of this officer, yet another major race trial in this country, and on the defense attorney, Eric Nelson, who you seem to think is doing a good job?
I do. I think Nelson is actually so I think he's been killing it just, you know, on its own merits, but especially when you consider it's 11-1 basically. I think he's got an assistant who just graduated, you know, who just passed the bar or something like that. But it's mostly just a one-man show out there. He did have a tough day on Thursday. I'd say that was probably his worst day, but you know, there was some kind of a few dirty tactics employed. As for the trial itself, you mentioned Al Sharpton. It's funny you mentioned that because I just happened to turn it on Court TV before I came and, you know, started my own coverage the other day, and they showed Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton's looking rough, like you said. He was stumbling over his words. He couldn't hardly get out the phrases. I think he said Chauvin's name wrong. Of course, he does that all the time. But he did look rough. Now that you mention it, but the trial itself, I mean, I'd like to think, you know, I guess there's a huge divide in my audience between those who think, you know, this is just a show trial. There's, you know, why are you spending so much time covering this? It's a foregone conclusion, right? You know, the cake is baked. These people are scared even to vote for the truth, even if they thought that, because they'll be worried about, you know, repercussions and possible violence against them in their own community. And I think that there, you know, there's a case to be made for that. But I'm operating as if, you know, it's all on the up and up, and you know, the jury is going to give it a fair shot and a fair shake, and hopefully that's the case. But you know, we do know those considerations are there.
Well, obviously the prosecution's playing hardball because when the city gave this massive settlement to the Floyd family right before the jury selection, and then the jurors got disqualified if they heard about it or if they were upset about it, and then of course knocks off any rational-minded conservatives who obviously would be offended by that. And then when you had Eric Nelson talking about, maybe the prosecutor Keith Ellison's son, who's on the Minneapolis City Council, kind of engineered that, and then you have Keith Ellison kind of going over and intimidating Eric Nelson and basically threatening him in the courtroom. So they're playing hardball. They definitely want a conviction on this. They think this is one that they can finally win. Obviously, they lost the George Zimmerman case, and I don't think they've gotten over that.
Well, you mentioned it wasn't even before jury selection; it was during jury selection. While they were picking jurors, they came out with a $27 million settlement and actually tried to say that this was just, there was nothing, it was all on the up and up. They just, so happened to conclude business this week. Nobody with a brain believes that. It is honestly one of the most blatant, thumb on the scale type maneuvers that I've seen in a long time. I mean, I won't say of all time because, there's been a lot of examples, I guess, throughout history, but man, that was, in modern times, that was pretty. In the United States, where it's supposed to be a fair system, that was just blatant. Putting your thumb on the scale, trying to tip it against Chauvin. And I'm glad you brought that up because so much stuff's happened since then. It might get lost in the shuffle, but yeah, to me that was just kind of emblematic of where we're at. Back in the day, they would, that just wouldn't happen, right? Because they wouldn't want to be seen is being that prejudicial, but now, the masks, they've taken the mask off.
Well, we know from the Chauvin trials so far that when George Floyd was crying out for mama, the activist, tried to present that was his mother. It turns out it was a white lady named Mama in his mind. That was a girlfriend of his named Mama. And there's also some dispute about what George Floyd said. About drugs? And we have a clip here. He may have said, "I ate too many drugs." Here's a Minnesota state law enforcement officer getting grilled by Eric Nelson.
I'd like to publish Exhibit 1007, and I'm going to ask you, sir, to listen to Mr. Floyd's voice. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did.
So there he admits that it sounded like George Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs." George Floyd apparently eating the drugs so he wouldn't get caught with the drugs by the police. But then the law enforcement officer actually changed on the stand and volunteered a whole new idea of what that meant after the prosecution questioned him, and he said, "I ain't do no drugs." So was it I ate too many drugs or I ain't do no drugs? This is the big debate right now in the media.
Well, there've been a couple of Perry Mason moments, I guess you could call them, during this last week. One of them is that, and plus the officer, first off, he just readily admits that yes, he did say that. Like, he didn't hesitate at all. There wasn't, any thinker motion or anything like that, thinking emoji face. He just right out says, no, he did. He said that. And then later on, like you said, they just divine a whole new story up, and he agrees to that. So first, to me, that calls into question his credibility just in general. The fact that he would just, switch his story so quickly on the stand in the course of one day. But you have that moment, right? And then there's a moment where you mentioned earlier where his girlfriend, who's also Mama, comes up. And these are things that I've never heard about this before. That there was two mamas, that he had her name saved as Mama in the phone, that he said, allegedly, I ate too many drugs. These are things that weren't talked about in the media, even in this alt media, really. I didn't see it if it was there. Maybe I missed it. And so to me, it's kind of a conversation, narrative changing moments that Nelson has brought up this week. Now he hasn't, every moment hasn't been a winner, but I think he's done a pretty admirable job overall with what he has, and the vitriol and the public opinion, seemingly being leveled against him, at least from the media. I would say there's a lot more support for Chauvin than the media lets on. They literally named the place where George Floyd died George Floyd Square. I mean, they're not even trying. It's just it really is I don't know, baffling how the media is getting away with this. I guess I was just raised with everybody deserves their day in court, innocent until proven guilty. And they're really not giving Chauvin that at all in the mainstream media. It is kind of like a lynching type mentality for him. Yeah.
Well, I think ever since OJ, the left has realized that they can divide America on race based on televised trials. And with OJ, they won the verdict, but they lost the public opinion. I mean, the public opinion was massively against OJ based on the evidence in that case. But we do have a racial powder keg in this country that's being manipulated. I don't know if you saw the mayor of Charlottesville, the female mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, the poem that she wrote, a filthy poem accusing her own city of being racist and a rapist, and referring to some disgusting things, just disgusting. And then she defends it as this is some kind of art. So she's disparaging the city that she herself runs. Meanwhile, we have Jonathan Acosta, state senator, Democrat, Rhode Island, who is trying to get rid of the dress code at the Rhode Island State Senate. He says it's racist. He says that having to wear a jacket and dress shirt is white oppression. Quote, "It is all stuff that connotes white collar white people. I look like the people in my community," and he dresses like a slob. So, all over the place. I think you are seeing, Ralph, and I don't think it's at all a racist thing to say this, because we are listening to what the left has to say. And now we have, of course, the Anti-Defamation League going after Tucker Carlson. And we have this effort by the leftist media to try to shut up white people for talking about replacement migration, which is featured on the United Nations website, for instance. But it's okay for the New York Times to openly brag about the fact that basically white conservatives are being replaced in this country, or Stacey Abrams bragging about how they're going to use the census to try to keep white people out of political power.
Yeah, and I guess this kind of goes to what I was just saying. I mean, it's mask off in a lot of different areas, like you said, where it's just they don't care about truth or anything or any type of sheen of fairness. It's we're going to shove this agenda down your throat. We're going to deplatform you. We don't care about fair trials. We don't care about lying about what happened on January 6th. And now you're seeing people, a lot of these charges are being dropped, or it turns out, oh, they lied about a lot of stuff and this wasn't really how they said it. And where were all these people who supposedly died? There's a lot of stuff just all around the block, everywhere you look. So where even 5 years ago, but especially 10, 20 years ago, they wouldn't dare behave like they're behaving, the mainstream media and the elites. And I just don't know where that goes long term. It doesn't have a good connotation. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I guess that's kind of the theme just that I've seen in general, just in the last year. I don't expect it to stop either. But just how open they've gotten with the dirty tactics and with the deplatforming and trying to call everybody a Nazi, trying to call everybody's patriotism into question. I don't know. It's been a long-term trend, but to me, it's kind of scary where it's headed. I guess if that would be my major theme, just Chauvin and all the stuff you mentioned, that I'm kind of worried for where they're pushing things. And again, I'm not even, the type who would normally be saying that type of stuff, but you can't help but think that when you watch the media every day, you talk about the attacks on whites, the way they talk about white people was just unthinkable even 5 years ago. At least you wouldn't see it in the, the mainstream, the main New York Times editorial. You might see some off-brand, dude or whatever, on the sideshow pushing this stuff out. But now it's just, it's reached the upper echelon there. And I don't
we hate Whitey is now A1. We hate Whitey. That's basically what they're going with now. And in fact, there was an attack allegedly by an Asian man against a white woman as retribution for the supposed white supremacist attacks on the Asian people. But of course, as we know from the New York Police Department themselves, there were no white people arrested or suspected of hate crimes against the Asians. They were all so-called people of color, because as we all know, black people and Asian people have had tremendous problems in cities over the years, and that has been heightened recently. And there are a lot of black people who are attacking Asian people, and white people are getting blamed for it in the media, which is an absurd psyop.
That thing, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because the whole thing is ridiculous. First thing, it's, let's be honest, it's people of color, like you said, use their term. It's people of color doing these attacks. And it's right there. It's blatant, right? There was
marginalized voices. The marginalized voices, we call them.
Marginalized characters. There was somebody, I think it was San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and this woman got carjacked. And I don't know, she was like trying to hold on to the side of her car, kind of like the guy who got killed in Washington, actually. But anyway, she got beat up and carjacked. And I literally had to dig for 10 or 15 minutes to find out the race of this attacker. This whole thing is cooked up. If anything, it's a hate crime epidemic, but not the way they're portraying it. But in my view, I don't like that. I don't like the term hate crime in the first place. You know what? There's crime. There's murder, there's all this stuff. It's already on the books, right? And the only time they use that type of language is to try to push some of their agenda through, really, and to mess with freedoms, to be honest with you. And that's not defending any heinous crimes at all. But they use hate crimes, hate speech, that came from hate crimes, right? This all is a perversion of the language. And it's something that we've kind of allowed, really. And so I don't even like accepting the term hate crime, much less this crazy, they cooked this up out of nowhere, basically. This whole white hate epidemic against Asians is just not true. And the one guy they do have, that went off, he was a sex maniac and was, clearly insane, and killed some white people too. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't an all Asian attack. So even that one, they've misrepresented. They're just dishonest all the way around. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And I don't know. Their dishonesty is getting it's getting to scary levels, though, I guess, is what is what I'm getting at from the last little part where I talked. Yeah, their dishonesty is reaching scary heights.
Well, Arthur the Aardvark and Elmo have both expressed their solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. So that's really all you need to know. Do we have the poem? I want to show you this poem. We're going to get into some stuff you've been doing on the Killstream, but I want to show this this little poem here in tweet form. Elizabeth Brunig, I guess is her name, from the New York Times. And she has written this tweet, which is absolutely insufferable, about how we're not going back to normal. And it is truly, it's sort of like a live journal entry. It's like, all of the mainstream media now is just feelings, and it's poetry, and it's sentiment. We're never going to be the same. We're never going to go back to normal, and that's okay. And it's like, why are feminized, 13-year-old girl level writers, telling us what the news is? If you are worried about whether you'll be able to go back to the way things were pre-COVID, don't fret. You won't. Nobody ever goes back to the way things were before anything. People change every day, and we don't get to choose what changes us. You'll be someone new, and that's okay. Like, why is every single thing in the news sphere tailored to emotionally moronic, idiotic women who I guess don't have Oprah anymore to empower them, and the casinos have been closed, as you point out on the Killstream, so they don't know what to do. And like, all of news just exists in the sphere of appealing to emotional, low IQ women.
These people are garbage, and the whole thing, I don't know what it is, but I mean, I do know what it is. A lot of these people have no lives, right? They love the COVID era because they got to sit home, not do shit, and just live in their little cocoon, and drink their wine all day and just be complete losers. And they're fine with it staying like that forever. And another thing it's really done is just a lot of people talking a lot of, I won't curse here, but talking a lot of garbage about mental illness. And I've noticed that that's really become a trend. Not that there's, people have mental illnesses, right? But it's almost become a currency in modern, I guess, modern media, you know what I mean, where people are trading
Yes.
trading their diagnosis back and forth, and I'm on this and I'm doing that, and this triggers my PTSD, and oh my god, you know what I mean. It's really
I have
strange.
seen a trend. I have seen a
Yeah.
trend of mental illness in the media. This is for sure. There were some big layoffs at the Huffington Post. Here are some recent Huffington Post bylines, by the way, and I took these down just in one day. I'm black, but my biracial baby looks white. This is what we deal with. This is what I have to deal with as a wheelchair user on Tinder. I tracked down the girls who bullied me as a kid. Here's what they had to say. And I think that one really gets to the heart of the liberal psychology there. I tracked down my bullies. Okay, as a young black girl, I loved my grandfather. Then I found out he'd been a KKK member. I I love that one. I sexted with a bot to quell pandemic loneliness. As a kid, I was told Armageddon was near, so I wouldn't need a job. Now I'm a BDSM model. When I was outed for my porn past, pole dancing helped me heal. Yes, pronouncing Kamala Harris's name correctly is a big deal. Here's why. And here, of course, is my favorite. COVID-19 changed the world, yet men on Tinder remained exactly the same.
Oh, they still just want to know. I could never imagine that didn't change their heart. Huffington Post, one of the funniest things that happened this year. First off, they got bought by BuzzFeed, I believe, right? Wasn't it? They got bought by BuzzFeed. And then the guy came in and said, what was it? He said, if you don't get an email by 1 p.m. Eastern, your job is safe. I think that's what he said, right? Something. It was either you do or don't get an email, your job is safe. Something. I forget which one it was. I think it was if you do get one, you're fired. Basically, if you don't, you're good. And so people had to sit there and wait on pins and needles. These completely useless pricks who, right? You just read some of their greatest hits right there. They don't do nothing of value whatsoever. They try to get people deplatformed. That's what they're mainly known for these days. And there was nothing sweeter than watching them and going and chronicling all those tweets on the Killstream. And they were so salty and so sick. And even the ones who were still there were complaining and crying about all their cry bully friends who got fired. It really was a beautiful day, Patrick, I have to say.
It was beautiful, yes. Yes, the mainstream media has just become a diary entry written by mentally ill people trying to settle scores from their school years. I think that's basically what the news is now. Bob Novak rolling over in his grave. But I think he would like the Killstream. You guys have been doing some great stuff. You had the big interview with Milo Yiannopoulos where he announced that he's become heterosexual. Is that right?
That's right. We had a show with Milo. What was that? I think that was on April Fool's Day, actually, April 1st. We talked to Milo. It's been a while since he's been on, but yeah, he did announce that. We went back and forth on a few things. I won't detail it all here, but it got fiery. I've known Milo for a long time, going all the way back to those Gamergate days, which seemed like an eternity ago, 7 years ago. Oh man,
wow,
it's been a minute.
I remember.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, but Killstream.
And that's when I first, yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead. Give your take on that.
I first heard about you. It's all chronicled now on like Wikipedia and stuff like this. As you were harassing these poor women and you were bullying them and dunking on them. And of course, Gamergate really was. I think it was a populist revolution against political correctness that was led, among others, by you. That I think probably changed the climate, changed the tone of media.
I can tell you what really turned me against the media was Gamergate itself, and what really changed my politics was Gamergate itself. And you mentioned that, and I'll tell this real quick because my Wikipedia entry has that I doxed and harassed Brianna Wu. I'll tell you real quick what happened. She lied actually about getting driven out of her house, and somebody proved that with an article, and wrote up an article, took out all the identifying information, where it was, add actual numbers and all that stuff. They published it and they got it reported and taken down. And then I republished it on my site, and Wu tries to claim that I doxed them and tried to ruin their life and all that stuff. That's literally how that happened. And so on Wikipedia now it says I doxed and harassed Brianna Wu, which is just completely not true. It's actually the opposite of what happened. This person lied about being driven out of their house, but whatever. That's the mainstream media for you, Mr. Howley.
Well, every night, the Killstream, go listen to it. The man, the myth, the legend, Ralph, and we'll